From the Lean Enterprise Institute in Boston, this is the WLEI Podcast, where we share stories of people making the world better through lean thinking and practice. For more information about LEI, including how we can help you apply lean thinking, please visit lean.org.
Welcome to the WLEI Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Savis, and today we're talking to Fabrice Bernhard and Catherine Chabiron. Please excuse my appalling French pronunciation there. Fabrice is the co-founder of a software group called Theodo, and Catherine is the author of a new book about Theodo called Learning to Scale at Theodo, Growing a Fast and Resilient Company. In the conversation, we dive into the evolution of Theodo's management system, how it found lean thinking, and how it compares to Agile, as well as how Theodo thinks about quality versus speed, and what it does to develop people. It was a fascinating discussion about a topic we rarely explore here, software, and we hope you enjoy it. Hello, Catherine and Fabrice. Welcome to the WLEI Podcast. Thank you for joining me here today.
Hello.
Thank you for inviting us.
So we can just get started with some background about who you are, what you do. I want to start off with Fabrice. Fabrice, you're the co-founder of a software company called Theodo. Can you just share a bit about who you are and what Theodo does?
So we're an international tech consultancy. We founded a company with my co-founder Bernhard back in 2009. And so we've been helping clients for 14 years now design, build, and deploy software solutions to business problems. And the reason we're here is we've been on a lean journey since about 2012.
Okay, and Catherine, you're author of a new book called Learning to Scale at the Theodo Group, Growing a Fast and Resilient Company, based on a series of observations of Theodo. But can you share a bit about your background and what your interest in Theodo is?
Yeah, well, my background is more industrial. I was in petroleum company, then in automotive business for more than 12 years. And in the automotive business, of course, I discovered lean there, but I touched lean in various support functions, logistics, payroll, finance, etc. But mostly in IT, because I was part of the IT department. I was part of the board members. I was one of the board members of the big IT department we were in, and we were trying to apply the lean techniques of problem solving, of flow, etc., to our IT activities. And when I heard about Theodo, that they were actually using lean as a framework to manage the company, I thought that would be extremely interesting to bridge my experience with theirs. And since I was conducting at the time a number of Gemba visits to companies in France, I talked to them, I called them, I had met them in different events, but I talked to them and I asked whether they would be willing to see me not just once for 2 hours, but for a number of visits, each pitching on a specific business issue that a typical tech company would have, like retain customers, retain talent, keep the edge on the technical basis and so on, and see how lean was helping them there. So that's how we got started.
And for those interested, check out Planet Lean and just search Theodo, and you can see that series of articles that Catherine's referring to there. They're really excellent. So, Catherine, you mentioned Theodo has adopted Lean as its core management system, but that's not always been the case. Fabrice, you founded the company in 2009. It experienced tremendous growth over its short history. And the challenge, it seems, with every software company experiencing rapid growth is how do you retain the innovative spirit that enabled that growth in the first place, while also being able to control the company as it grows in size, and doing that without sort of stapling this sclerotic bureaucracy on top of it. And I'm curious, how did you manage that problem over time at Theodo, and what led you to lean as a potential solution to that problem?
So what is interesting in our journey is that we really started a company in the first place. We started our entrepreneurial journey with Bernhard straight out of university. And the driver for that was clearly that we didn't want to work for a bureaucratic corporate. So, and because we were young and probably a bit reckless, we thought, starting our own company is the solution. And what is very interesting is when you start your own company, you realize that it doesn't take that much time to be hit by the problem of, implementing a bureaucracy again, because you start having quality issues. And I'm talking about, at the scale of 6-10 people and not much more. You start having quality issues. So you start thinking, okay, I need to put processes everywhere. And then you start thinking, how do I make sure the processes are actually followed? So I need to put managers and you're like a 10 people company, but basically you're back to square one. You're like this gigantic bureaucracy. The difference we have in the software industry compared to many industries is that there was an obvious answer at the time when you were hit with this problem, which was Agile. And we had been doing Agile and but not clearly not disciplined, not in a disciplined enough way, and probably not with enough maturity to understand really what made Agile work. And so there's this turning point in 2011 when we're having yet another quality issue, and it's software complex projects. You can really end up in some kind of lose-lose situations where you've really done your best, but you've not built a product that the customer actually needs. You've built what they ask for, but not what they need. So they're frustrated, you're frustrated, everybody's frustrated. And what is interesting is that the answer when we said, you know what, we should have done proper radical Agile, but you refused. And they said, well, yes, I refused when you offered the option, but you shouldn't have let me choose. You should have imposed it. And so that was a turning point where we said, okay, now we're going to go full on Agile, really implement Scrum and extreme programming by the book, and just find customers that are ready to adopt this. And we did find a few customers, and it was amazing. It was really day and night. The customers were so much happier. The products were better. And the teams were much happier too. So it was really this amazing turning point in life where you realize, wow, there are ways of working that just make things so much better from on all point of views. So that's something that you have in the software industry, which is these very well documented frameworks like Scrum or extreme programming that give you a solution. The problem, of course, is that we quickly realized that solution was amazing for small teams of software engineers. And this was long before consultancies started creating Agile at scale frameworks. So there weren't any of these frameworks, probably luckily for us.
So you adopt Agile, you experience a lot of success. Why not stop there? What problems remained where you felt a need to explore something different?
So Agile really, what it really changed, when if you look at it from outside, is all of a sudden we had these teams, small teams of software engineers that were fully empowered with the customer in the team. And so they were fully empowered to solve the business problem the customer was facing. So in terms of scaling horizontally, each new customer getting a new team, that worked seamlessly. But that also meant that the company started growing very fast. And that's when we realized Agile was not the solution for, recruitment or finance or these kind of jobs, which are not project innovation.
Or collaboration, I guess, between different teams and so on.
And the second problem, as Catherine mentions, is so Agile is not the solution for any team. It's clearly better designed for project innovation and software in particular. And it didn't give us answers on how to coordinate all these teams together. There were some people were starting to think about it. Jeff Sutherland had started writing about scrums of scrums, but clearly it was not as as clearly set out as Scrum was for a small team. And then the whole, you're growing a business, and so you're thinking about, business strategy, financing the growth, and all these questions that clearly are not dealt with in the Agile community, not as much. And so there's this combination of Agile helps us scale, but clearly hits its limits failure, as soon as we need to, as soon as we have new teams and new departments, and etc. And on the other side, there's this conviction now that we've experienced with Agile that there must be a solution. We can't be the only ones facing this problem and wanting to solve it in a different way. And so that's why I started I started looking for this kind of better solution that works for the whole, organization, not just for the team. And so I was looking at it in the Agile community, and I was lucky enough to meet in this Agile community at the time somebody called Antoine Contal, who had been a pioneer in Agile, tried to implement it in a large telco, met the limits of Agile in a large organization, and discovered Lean and become a Lean consultant.
So, Catherine, as an observer of Theodo, what, and probably other software companies, I assume, as an author, you have a chance to meet many, and in your own background, having served as somebody overseeing a large IT department at a automotive organization, I'm curious about, what are the common problems you see in the software community? Like Fabrice said, Agile can address a lot of these, particularly when it comes to project delivery and software teams. But do you also see that as a kind of limiting factor there? Do you see it struggle when you're trying to talk about managing an enterprise versus managing a project? Or what are the common issues you see in software companies that you get to go see?
I'd say probably this is the quality aspect and the problem solving and the learning out of the problem solving that makes the difference. Agile is excellent at driving teams, as Fabrice said, fast, fail fast, move fast, break down problems. So the idea of small batches is very, very obvious. The lead time, the challenge provided by the lead time is fairly obvious. The customer is made visible as much as we can with Agile. We try to talk to the customer more often than in other ways of driving IT projects. But what was still missing probably was this capacity to learn from the failures, from the problem solving, and also the framework for the full company. What we try to show in the book is that the TPS, the Toyota Production System, offers a framework for the leaders, and provides them, in the words of Bernhard, the co-founder of Theodo, it provides them all the time with the next step, because all the time facing a given situation, you are able to check whether you are sufficiently focused with the customer and the product, or are you discussing internal processes? Are you obsessed with lead time? And this Kanban, for example, is it telling me how long the customer has been waiting for a solution? Jidoka and Andon is very much used in Theodo. Is Andon used to prevent bad quality to move on? Or are we just doing our best and letting it go? Are we doing tests each time at each step of the process in the project, or are we doing final test with user acceptance test? The whole difference was adopting TPS as a framework gave them a mass of solutions to map or to bridge their difficulties.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Are you struggling to implement change inside your organization? Then join us at the 2024 Lean Summit in Carlsbad, California on March 19th and 20th with optional workshops on the 21st and 22nd. Dive deep into the transformative power of Lean and immerse yourself in inspiring keynotes and practical learning sessions. This year's theme is Shaping Tomorrow, Developing People, and offers game-changing insights and actionable strategies for today's toughest business challenges. And here's a special tip for our listeners. Register by October 31st and save up to $900 on your registration. Don't miss out on this opportunity to expand your expertise and connect with like-minded leaders. Learn more at lean.org/summit. Now, back to the podcast.
I want to dive into the specifics of how you actually bring that TPS framework to life. You'll have to excuse, I'm not a software developer, although with ChatGPT, I have managed to build some pretty impressive web applications that may be up for, I'm just kidding. Not about the developing applications. ChatGPT is staggering in its capability, but I can't read JavaScript or whatever, Python, whatever that stuff is. But so I may ask some silly questions here, but I want to see how this stuff comes to life, because we're not talking about an assembly line, right? We're not talking about people fixing parts on a washing machine or a Toyota Camry. We're talking about people sitting in front of a computer and typing. So how do you see something like Jidoka in that environment? How do you see like connecting with the customer in that environment? I want to explore that a bit, starting with the customer, because that is where value is created. That is the most important thing. And Fabrice, I want to understand, what are the practical things? What are the things you guys do to feel connected to the customer? I mean, you said in the opening question, you would build things the customer asked for, but that they ultimately didn't like. By the way, as a customer of some third-party software providers, I know that feeling as a customer, where I thought I asked exactly what I wanted and got exactly what I didn't want. It's amazing how that happens. But how do you practically go about doing that?
Yes, I could give you like a really concrete example for every piece of the TPS house. On value for the customer, what I think is amazing in Agile, if you do it again by the book, in extreme programming, you put the customer in the team and you iterate with them, which means that gives you a very simple and effective way of understanding value, because you've got the customer in the team, and even if the customer doesn't know exactly what they want, you're iterating with them. And that's what I love about Agile, this ability to create amazing engineering insights, because you've got business and engineering in the same team experimenting continuously. Now, when you scale that, two things happen. First, you can't really put the customer in every team of the organization. And also you can scale the customer. Sometimes the customer is not this, decisive expert business leader, but actually a whole organization with different stakeholders and, not even being sure of what they need as an organization. So this is where, the ideas of Lean become much more interesting. So very, very concretely speaking, we've tried different ways of implementing the concept paper. And the one way we've kind of started converging towards is actually the Amazon's format, called the PR FAQ, for press release and frequently asked questions, which I think is a great exercise in empathy for the users, where you make the effort of writing a narrative of how your product is going to really, change the lives of the users once it's released. And that, that allows you to have empathy for the users and customers, and working backward, try to identify what are the product characteristics, the dimensions of your product that you will need to work on hard to really make it compelling and useful and valuable. And
sorry,
please, Catherine.
I just wanted to tell a short story. I remember seeing a Gemba with Bernhard, your co-founder, and he came onto a project. The first thing that the people on the project, and this is usually what you see in every project in the world that are being supervised or overviewed or audited by big bosses, they started showing deliverables. And Bernhard stopped them and said, no, let's go back to the product. Let's look at the product. Show me the product first. And the conversation changed completely. Sorry, Fabrice.
No, I think it's a great point.
It's one of the tricks they use. Back to the product.
It's a super relevant point because, I can talk to you about concept papers or Amazon's PR FAQ. But the reality is, if then as a leader, you just add it as a tool in your organization, it's not going to change culture. And especially when you're like deep into delivering software, you need the help. You need continuous nudging to like take a step back and think about the value for the customer. Mm-hmm. And one way to do that is like, typically the Gemba walks. And I love Catherine's example because that's exactly one thing that Benoit will do is like, stop showing me the deliverables and and the plan and the schedule. Show me the products. What are the dimensions you're working on? And therefore, referring back to this initial design phase, product design phase, and iterating on it as we understand better what the product should be. So that's one very concrete way where we're trying to stay focused on value to the customer, even when it's not one team, and even if the customer is not within the team.
I want to talk about quality. I'm very curious about quality, especially in the software world, because I know nothing about it. I only experience quality as a consumer when I go in my app updates and I see all these bug fixes and things like that. And only recently, again, I'm not a developer, but ChatGPT has made me peek under the hood of some applications, payment processing things, e-commerce platforms that LEI uses. And frankly, I'm just staggered that anything actually works. It's a real miracle out there that this stuff actually works. It's extremely complex and very challenging to work with. And in software, it seems the ethos has been, I think it was Mark Zuckerberg, he'd said something like move fast and break things. Speed to delivery is the most important thing to acquire a large user base, achieve first position in the markets. And then, once that's done, you can go back and fix problems. Fabrice, you seem to have a different philosophy inside of Theodo, where quality is not sacrificed at the expense of speed, but you try to build in quality in the development process. You talked, Catherine mentioned the word Jidoka, built-in quality. What does that look like in the software world? Or what is Theodo's philosophy vis-a-vis quality, and how do you achieve quality in the development process?
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic that we've been working hard on. The software market is really at the moment, or seems at least to be very much divided into two very different worlds. You've got basically the aerospace world, where the software, there's really a lot of effort putting into making a defect-free code, but that comes at a huge cost. One metric I found was that they wrote about 4 pages of specifications for every 10 lines of code when coding software for the NASA shuttle. So you can't build the internet in the way that you build code for the space shuttle. But on the other side, as you said, I think the industry is maturing and is fed up of the move fast and break things. Facebook actually removed that motto from their culture, so you can see that slowly we're expecting better quality code, and that makes sense because there's this famous sentence: "Software is eating the world." You can't let something that is riddled with bugs eat the world. So I think there's this reckoning. And we've not had our Ford Pinto moment as the American automotive industry had in the 70s, but it could happen in the coming years. And so at Theodo, we're striving to find this balance, or better solution, more ingenious solution, where we can actually achieve very high quality code without making it a very bureaucratic process that would be unacceptable for most young software engineers today. So what we found inspiration for that kind of like more ingenious way in an amazing book that we nicknamed Dantotsu because I don't remember the title. But I think it's the
From Nomura's book, yeah.
Nomura.
So the book by Sadao Nomura called something like the Toyota Dantotsu Radical Way for Quality. And it's a very inspiring book for many reasons. One, it's somebody trying to achieve, superior quality in an environment where people think they're already doing decent quality, and the market is not asking them to improve the quality yet. And I think that's fascinating. And also, I mean, the book is fascinating because it's really the collection of 300 A3s written by Sadao Nomura. So it's a very practical implementation of radical quality strategy. So it might not be in our industry, but at least every detail is like addressed, and therefore we can make amazing parallels.
And one of your CTOs actually fell in love with it, Woody Rousseau. I know. I think he was the first one to start with the ABCDE segmentation. Maybe you want to talk about that?
No, yeah, but what happened is the book was discovered by Woody and the group. We did a book club among all the senior tech leaders in the group, and we're very inspired. And the few things that I can easily explain that we've implemented. I think one of the first things we found really inspiring is the idea that you're not classifying defects by severity, but by which in a way is not useful in terms of learning. It's useful in terms of prioritizing fixes, but that's also already very sad because it means you're not fixing bugs that are not very severe. So what Sadao Nomura says is you should categorize them by stages of detection, and if you do that correctly, what you get is an organization that doesn't try to reduce the amount of defects. And that's, of course, when you're in leadership, if you give the target of less defects, the easiest way to do that is to stop looking for them. So by categorizing stages of detection, you can say, defects that are detected at a later stage needs to be reduced, but defects that are detected at an earlier stage should be increased. So you get this healthy target of actually looking more for defects and looking for them earlier, and because we believe that the earlier you detect a defect, the less you will have actually outflowing to the customer. So really quickly, we've identified 5 stages of defect. E is when the customer complains. D is when it's in production but the customer doesn't complain, which is quite specific to software. In software, you're able to release new versions to the customer and sometimes realize there's a defect before somebody complains. C is when it gets detected by an internal customer. So it could be like QA department, product owners, product managers. B, it's when it's discovered within the technical teams. And A is when it's discovered actually by the producer themselves. So the software engineer writing the code and then realizing that what they thought would work doesn't work. So these are like all our stages of detection. And of course, it's hard to deploy at the whole group level, but we've done tremendous progress and it's been very exciting.
It is amazing. So nobody reads this book. It's unfortunate. It is It is an amazing book. It is a fabulous book, and it's I too can't remember the title. It has Dantotsu in it. So if you Google Dantotsu, you'll find the book. And I got to spend a week with that author, Sadao Nomura. He is an amazing man. And what struck me about Mr. Nomura, we would go inside factories and he would tell stories about his time working with Toyota Group companies. And he would say his goal for this plant is 0 defects. And he really meant it. That was not some sort of pie in the sky aspirational. That was the job to be done. And they were set out on these very thorough plans to achieve it, really built on discipline, where once a problem is identified, the time to solve it is not tomorrow, not this week, it is like right now.
Yeah, it's important to point out this aspect because, and Theodo knows it very well, is if you don't have the challenge, you will never have the energy to really go for that quality search or that bug search, it's so much easier to let go the bug. And that's what most software companies do. And when they eventually start looking at the bugs, the mountain of bugs they have to correct is so huge that they let go again. But what Sam Nomura brought in was this idea that, number one, you need somebody to challenge you. And the challenge was terrible because it was like decrease by 50%. And once you've done it, decrease by 50% again. But if you have the challenge without the competence and the learning and the problem solving and the Kaizen days and so on, it's not going to work. So Theodo has the challenge and provides, the leaders of Theodos do provide the challenge, but they also do provide, this is really lean, the support, the management chain of support, the time to do it, the recognition when people do it, the sharing. There are many instances in the book where we explain how they share through book clubs, TV shows, discussions with peer members, member of a peer group, and so on. So they do this recognition, they do this enabling of quality. It's not only giving the challenge, it's giving the support as well.
Catherine, you've emphasized a couple times now the importance of learning. At the crux of all this is learning. And I was struck as Fabrice described that ABCD analysis, they're not just looking for defects, they're looking for the point of occurrence, which presumably doesn't just teach you about the problems you have, but the process that's causing the problems. So where is the root cause of this problem? So it's going a layer deeper than just finding a bug. It's trying to find the source of the bug. And presumably that helps the organization learn so that it can do something to that process to fix it, to keep that bug from recurring. But can you speak more about, why do you say learning is important? Why is learning at the crux of all this stuff? Why is it important?
I will, maybe Fabrice will explain what he does in terms of bug fixing and so on. But yes, learning is so important because the basic assumption of TPS and Lean is that we're going to unleash the creativity of everyone in the company. You cannot hope to, software companies, like many other companies, are in a deep competitive situation. They have to strive to retain a technical edge all the time because, as you mentioned, every day you have new ChatGPT and IA and so on. If they don't learn faster than their competitors, they will just die. And that's true for most companies. So you have two choices. Either you learn, you have a few experts, a few brilliant experts, and you rely on them to learn and to explain to the others what they have to do. Or you can try and get everybody to learn in the company, learn on small things, learn on a code issue, on a small technical upload, learn of very simple things, but learn all the time. And it's much more efficient that way than relying on a few experts. So this is what Lean believes in. How do we create the conditions of learning every day, everywhere, for everyone? Because it pays off compared to having a few experts learning.
What's your experience with that, Fabrice? Is that what you're seeing at Theodo?
What inspires me in Lean is this motto, from Toyota: good thinking, good products. Mm-hmm. And I think it's even more true in the software industry than it's ever been for Toyota and the car industry. There was a lot of debate around what is, about the fact that there's a 10x programmer, somebody who's like 10 times more productive, and people saying it makes no sense, and other people saying, of course, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm on the side that some people, just by their design choices, can save tremendous amount of time or bring like a much more ingenious solution to the market. And then the question is, how do you not rely on one or two individuals who have this, ability to design better or come up with more ingenious solutions, but how do you make sure that your organization fosters these kind of abilities? And that's where I think lean thinking and Dantotsu in particular is this amazing opportunity to learn about the deep issues you can find in technology, and so therefore learning about the trade-offs and the places, the places are dangerous and those that are not, that will allow you to then later in your design choices make better choices and therefore make much better products. So there's clearly in our software industry, it's a lot about the quality of the thinking that goes in the design phase and then in the coding phase, and that's why learning is so important.
And if I may, because I don't think we mentioned it specifically, Fabrice mentioned that the customer was brought inside the teams. They do have a weekly discussion with the customer to check on the speed and the quality of the delivery and so on. So this customer end-on, because it's a way of end-on for the customer to say, hey guys, you're not going in the right directions, or you didn't do this, or you were not delivering this properly. This is a constant source of problem solving and end-on inside the company. Actually, end-on has become a verb in Theodo. They end on each other. You end on me, you didn't end on me. So they keep using, so end-on is very simple. There's no code or button or whatever. They just talk to each other. But they use the word extensively because this is what triggers problem solving or problem discussion, at least, all the time.
I want to explore one more topic, and that's around, I guess, what we've been talking about, which is people. Fabrice, you mentioned that famous Toyota quote, good products, good people. From an outsider's perspective, like mine, it does seem like the software industry, like you said, Fabrice, is really, companies try to identify that 10x individual, and employees are commonly traded. You see a lot of people moving companies quite regularly. That's anathema to the Toyota approach, which is to, presumably hire somebody for life. And it's sort of a mutual exchange where Toyota is providing job security and career growth. The employee is expected to contribute to the company with their creativity, not just their hands, but their minds. And it sounds like that's an approach that Theodo is trying to take. But what does people development look like? Does Theodo have a philosophy about when it hires somebody, how it intends to develop them so that that person can contribute to the long-term success of the company? So it's not just a short-term view. What is the thinking behind that?
There's and clearly what you see in the Silicon Valley, where people have an average tenure of like 2 years, is the opposite of what lean thinking would recommend. But it's also reality in the software industry everywhere in the world, more so in the Silicon Valley, but it's still true in a lot of places. Yes, our philosophy is we've been very good at hiring graduates for a long time. So we will hire people out of university and really invest in their usually take people who have already shown ability to code and have some experience already, because that's the amazing thing with software. You can actually do it as a side project and therefore learn it way before you enter the professional market. But these young talented engineers usually don't have the professional experience, so we provide them with the professional experience, with the methodology to make sure they deliver the best possible outcome for the customers. And therefore we do have this kind of mutual agreement, which is you bring us, your talent and your energy, but we bring you a real step up in terms of expertise, experience, and professionalism. And we love that to happen, to be a mutual agreement that lasts forever. But we also have a philosophy where we consider that, we live in an ecosystem. Many of these engineers will be tempted by other experiences. Many will actually be inspired by an entrepreneurial journey, and therefore, leave the company to launch their own thing. And sometimes it has happened. Sometimes they've been successful, which is great, and sometimes they've been less successful and have come back with additional experience, which has actually been incredibly valuable for the company. So yes, we do have, let's say, kind of a life ambition, a long-term ambition, but we do acknowledge that this long-term ambition does include potential experience outside of our own company.
And they try, and it is not easy, but they try. This is part of the book as well, the discussions with the group HR Mary, to have a plan for every people. In other words, to take what people are very good at and not try and change their weaknesses, but build on their capabilities to go even further on that path. This is really interesting because they will capitalize on these good qualities and build on them, which means that you can't have a training. Of course, they do have overall trainings for starters to get onboarding trainings, I would say, on the basics. But later on, they will push people. For example, some people are extremely good at creating what they call enablers, systems or tools or devices that will help the other teams to do something recurrent, like creating a login feature on an app. So how do they push those guys to build enablers and create recognition out of it? Others will be great at problem solving. How do they push those guys at problem solving? Others will have a real entrepreneurship spirit, and they've pushed those to start the new spin-offs that are part of the Theodo group, which was a clever way of capitalizing on their ambition and giving them a whole new area of market space to investigate. So yes, they try to do the plan for every people.
Catherine and Fabrice, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks again to Catherine and Fabrice for joining me on the podcast. Be sure to check out Catherine's new book about Theodo called Learning to Scale at Theodo Group, Growing a Fast and Resilient Company. And that quality book we mentioned is called The Toyota Way of Dan-Totsu Radical Quality Improvement, and it's by Sadao Nomura. You can find it on lean.org. And thanks to all of you for listening.